So, the European Union has just rolled out a massive landmark law for artificial intelligence. And, buried in all that legal text is one of the most critical questions of our technological age.
Think about it. When an algorithm messes up, makes a call that costs someone a job, or their freedom, or even impacts their health, who's on the hook? Who's responsible? That's really the core problem this new law is trying to solve.
And we need to be really clear here. The stakes are incredibly high. We're not talking about a streaming service suggesting a movie you don't like. We're talking about AI systems that help with medical diagnoses, that screen job applications, or even identify suspects for the police. In these areas, a mistake isn't just an inconvenience. It can have severe, life-altering consequences.
So, how does the EU plan to tackle this? Well, their answer starts with what they call a risk-based approach. And the idea is actually quite straightforward. Not all AI is the same. The law is designed to focus its toughest rules on the systems that can do the most harm, what it officially calls high-risk AI.
So here's the official definition, and making this distinction is absolutely crucial. You see, the whole point is for the law to be proportionate. The bigger the potential risk to your health, your safety, or your fundamental rights, the stricter the rules get. So what exactly are these rules for the high-risk stuff?
All right, to manage these high-risk systems, the Act sets up a framework built on 4 essential pillars. You can think of these as the absolute, non-negotiable foundations for creating AI that we can actually trust.
First up, we have Pillar 1, Risk Management. And what's really important to understand here is that this isn't just a one-and-done safety check before our product ships. No, the law requires a continuous process. You have to be identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks throughout the AI's entire life, from the moment it's just a concept on a whiteboard, all the way through to when it's out in the world being used. And it's not just about what the system is supposed to do, but also about any reasonably foreseeable misuse. They have to think about that too.
Pillar number 2 is all about data and data governance. And, this is really the foundation of any AI. Garbage in, garbage out, as they say. The Act is very clear. The data used to train these systems has to be high quality and relevant. But here's the kicker. It's not enough to just use good data. The law requires developers to proactively hunt for biases in that data that could lead to unfair or discriminatory results. That's a huge step.
Next, we have our third pillar, human oversight. And this one is a critical safety net, an absolute backstop. The rule is simple. High-risk systems must be designed so that a human can always monitor, intervene, and most importantly, override the machine's decision. It's about making sure we never completely hand over our agency to an algorithm.
And that brings us to our fourth and final pillar, technical integrity. This really comes down to 3 key questions. First, is it accurate? Second, is it robust? Meaning, can it handle errors without a complete meltdown? And third, is it secure? Can it stand up to cyber threats like, for example, data poisoning, which is a fancy way of saying an attacker deliberately feeds it bad information to mess with the results?
Okay, so we've got these 4 pillars of trust. But that just brings us right back to where we started. Who's actually responsible for making sure all this happens? And the AI Act's answer is pretty clear. It's not on just one person or one company. It's a chain of shared responsibility.
Let's break that down. You can think of it like the journey a product takes to get to you. First, you have the provider. This is the company that actually designs and builds the AI. They're on the hook from the very beginning to make sure it meets all these safety and ethical requirements. Then you have the deployer. That could be a hospital, a bank, whoever is actually using the AI in the real world. Their job is to use it responsibly, follow the instructions, and make sure that human oversight is always in place. And finally, watching over the whole process, you have the regulators, the national authorities and independent bodies who act as the watchdogs, making sure everyone is playing by the rules.
Okay, but here's the big question that always comes up with rules like these. Doesn't all this red tape just crush innovation? It's a totally fair question, and it's one the architects of this law thought about a lot. In fact, they built in a specific tool designed not to stifle innovation, but to actually encourage responsible experimentation. So, instead of the old way of doing things, with rigid one-size-fits-all rules that get outdated the second they're written, the Act introduces a much more modern idea: regulatory sandboxes. So, what's a sandbox? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like: a safe, controlled environment where companies can test out their most innovative AI systems for a limited time, all while a regulator is looking over their shoulder. And this, I think, is a really smart way to handle things. For one, innovators can actually test their big ideas without putting the public at risk.
It also means compliance gets built into the design from the start, not just tacked on at the end. And maybe the most important part, regulators get a front-row seat to see what's coming next, which helps them make sure the rules stay relevant and future-proof. All right, so we've gone through high-risk systems, the 4 pillars, shared responsibility, even these regulatory sandboxes. But it's easy to get lost in all the jargon. So let's take a step back and ask the most important question. Why does any of this actually matter? And the answer is really simple. It's not about the technology. It's about us. It's about people.
The law itself uses a specific term, the affected person. Now, it sounds like a dry legal phrase, but all it means is you, me, anyone whose life might be touched by a decision made by one of these high-risk AI systems. So you can think of this entire rulebook as a shield designed specifically to protect that person.
So what does that shield actually do for you in the real world? Well, it means safeguarding your fundamental rights like privacy and the right to not be discriminated against. It means you get more transparency when a high-stakes decision is being made about you by an AI. It gives you the power to understand and even question those outcomes, and it forces these systems to be designed with fairness in mind from the get-go.
So when you look at this whole complex system, all the rules, all the pillars, all the responsibilities, it all boils down to one simple goal: protecting one person from being harmed by technology.
And that person is you, the citizen, the patient, the job applicant, the individual. The whole point of this law is to make sure that as this technology gets more and more powerful, our rights and our safety are never an afterthought. They're at the very center of the conversation.
So the European Union has stepped up and written the world's first major rulebook for AI, creating a clear line of responsibility. But that leaves us with one final and maybe the most important question of all. In a field that changes not year by year, but month by month, can any set of rules, no matter how thoughtful or well-designed, really keep up with the incredible speed of artificial intelligence?